everyone, welcome back to my channel, welcome to my channel if you are new around here. If you are new, hello, welcome, please make sure you do subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. First things first, please ignore how patchy my hair is, okay? We're just gonna ignore it because I can't fix it right now. So for today's video, I promised this to you guys in my last video, and that is my quick service food and beverage Q&A. I actually received a lot of questions after that video, both in the comments on Instagram, so thank you so much for you guys that did take an interest in that video, because that definitely means a lot to me. And yeah, I thought I would just answer some of your guys' questions. I had a lot of questions that were very, very similar, so I've kind of compiled them all into a big list, and yeah, let's get started. So this Q&A is going to be purely based on any questions you guys had about my role at Disney World, just like the quick service food and beverage role in general, because it is actually one of the most common roles cast members can get. So I thought I would just answer any questions. If you guys do have any questions regarding the DCP in general, if I get enough questions, I might do a second Q&A. There is already one on my channel, so make sure you check that out, but if not, yeah, let me know. Okay, so the first question was, how many hours a week did you work? As I mentioned in my previous video, I worked between 25 and 30 hours. I did the minimum amount that you could do as a CP, or as an international CP especially. This was purely because my location was super overstaffed, which obviously is a good thing because it means that there's always someone to cover a shift, or you know, it's never going to be understaffed, which is always nice. But yeah, because of that I did only work 25 to 30 hours. Occasionally I did pick up a shift, especially towards the end of my program, because I realised how little money I had and I had to book a flight to get home. So I did work a little bit more towards the end, but yeah, especially at the start I probably only worked about 25 hours. I think sometimes it even dropped down to about 24, which they're not supposed to do because your visa can get like terminated because of that, because your visa states 25 hours, but I never had an issue. So yeah, about 25 to 30 hours. How easy is it to swap shifts? So this totally depends on your location, and also how nice and understanding your leaders are. All of my leaders were pretty good when it came to trading shifts. They were always super busy though, which because they were kind of the leaders for a lot of different locations in the Magic Kingdom, and this meant that sometimes it was hard to find them to ask them to trade a shift. That's probably the only issue I ever had, was actually trying to find the right leader to like ask about trading your shift. But generally speaking, I never had a problem with trading. Once I did find a leader who could help me, they were always pretty nice about it, and kind of just said as long as the form is filled out and the other person agrees to it, then sure. The only time this is ever going to be a problem, and this is kind of like a general thing, is if you are picking up someone else's shift and that means that you're now working more than 40 hours, or they're now working less than the minimum amount, so under 25 hours, then sometimes that can cause some problems. But often if it's because you've got like a doctor's appointment or like something really important that you have to miss your shift for, then they will kind of allow it. But generally if you just want the day off because you want the day off, they probably won't actually allow it if one of you is working too much or too little because of it. So as far as I'm aware as well, all international cast members have to fill out a little slip of paper to give to their leaders, and it has to be signed by both people that are like involved in the shift trading. Although I know that a lot of regular CPs, regular cast members, just use the hub online. I can't really tell you too much about that because I never used it, but if you do have any questions, then ask a leader or someone who might have done it before. You'll also be able to pick up in kind of various different locations as well. Obviously this depends on the location you're in. As I touched on in my last video, if you work with alcohol, then you are alcohol trained, and that means you can work anywhere across Disney World. However, if you work in the Magic Kingdom, then you can probably only pick up in the Magic Kingdom, just because everywhere else kind of sells alcohol. So yeah, I don't know how restricted they are on that, but that's definitely something to kind of check with your leaders or other cast members that you know who have swapped. Do I get my service celebration off automatically? No. This is honestly the most irritating thing, because you'd think a Disney planned event would let you have your service celebration off. However, you don't. You do have to try and get the day off. Some people were able to pick it off as like holiday because they knew about the date early enough in advance. However, the easiest way again to do this would just be to trade your shift with someone else. My advice would be to trade with a non-CP, so trade with someone who is a full-time cast member, seasonal or part-time. Generally part-time cast members always want to pick up shifts just because they're not ever given that many shifts. In my experience anyway, this is what happened. So I would always ask part-time cast members first. I would avoid asking CPs because the chances are they probably have the same service celebration as you. They might not, obviously, but I feel like a lot of them do when they all start at the same time. So yeah, a little tip for this though as well is if you're worried about being able to get the whole of your day off, and this goes to kind of any role in Disney World, it might even be worth trying to get kind of just the morning off, or swapping so that you work later on in the day rather than in the morning when your service celebration is. The service celebration is like a lunchtime thing, like late morning, early afternoon thing, so if you're unable to get the day off completely, you probably would be fine to start in the evening. Obviously I know this isn't ideal because a lot of people like to go to the Magic Kingdom after their service celebration and sort of celebrate and take photos of their hats and get their hats embroidered and stuff like that, so it's not ideal, but yeah, you definitely can get it off and it is doable, but you don't get it off automatically. So the next question that I got a lot was, how does the point system work? So for those of you who don't know, Disney work their kind of staffing rules and regulations on a point system. So if you call out and you don't go to your shift, you get a point. You also can get points for various other things, such as being late, although this is definitely kind of something that they're quite lenient on, especially if you're late because of the cast buses. So being late might be one of them. If you're rude to a guest, or if you do something out of line, you break a rule, which I never saw happen that much, so that's probably not something to worry about, but if you are someone who is likely to break a rule, just bear that in mind. Basically the point system works, so for every 3 points you get, you have a warning, and if you have 3 warnings, you get terminated. That means that your contract is ended and you no longer work for Disney and you have to leave. It's quite scary. I've heard some stories of people being termed and it is quite scary, so I would say avoid getting points where you can. That's not to say that if you're sick you should go into work, because equally if you don't call out and you're sick and you turn up for work and your leaders see that you're sick, they will give you a point and send you home anyway. So I wouldn't be too worried about calling out if you're sick. You definitely should, because there's no way you should be able to work if you are not well, especially if you're like coughing or sneezing, because obviously that is then endangering guests. I had to call out a couple of times for being unwell, and to be honest I didn't really mind because I knew that I was only going to get like 1 or 2 points for it. If you are sick a lot and you worry that you're going to rack up points, a good thing to do would be to go to health services, which is located at Epcot, and get a doctor's note, and then you can give it to your leader and be like, okay, I've got this medical condition, or I've been quite sick recently and I might have to take quite a few days off. If you have a medical note, then I'm not going to give you points for being off, because they can't, basically. I'm pretty sure anyway. I don't think they would give you a point for being sick. I feel like this isn't a thing. I was late once because the bus was stuck in traffic, but that also meant that a lot of other people that were starting at the same time as me were also late because they were also on that bus. Basically leaders and coordinators can track the buses, so, and they will also get notified if one is being held up, if it's broken down, or it's stuck in traffic, then they will know. So usually when you turn up they're already aware that the bus was late, but you kind of just apologise, say the bus was late, and then that'll be it. Sometimes you might get half a point for being late because of the buses or any other reason that you might be late, but often that will get revoked after a week. It kind of happens automatically, so they might take the point away if they realise that the reason you were late is literally beyond your control. So yeah, they are quite lenient with the point system, but at the same time they do follow it. So I'm pretty sure to get a warning you have to have 3 points in 30 days and then equally 6 points in 60 days. However, if like me you're on a summer programme, you're not there for that long, you can't really rake up that many points, you don't really get the chance to, so I wouldn't worry about it too much, but just be aware that it is a thing. So the next question I actually got a lot, and that is, I have no previous quick service experience, is it going to be hard to pick up? Not really, I don't think. I can't really speak from experience because I have a lot of quick service experience. I worked in a fish and chip shop and in a pub before I did the programme, not because I wanted to do the programme, but because that's just what happened in my life. Those are just the jobs that I'd already had by that point. So that definitely helped me in terms of securing my role at Disney World. I feel like I asked for attractions or merchandise, but it was pretty obvious to me that I was going to get quick service just because of the experience I'd had. Equally, if you've worked in retail your whole life, you're a lot more likely to get merchandise. So I think it definitely matters in the sense of when they give you a role, it will be based on any previous experience you've had. If you've had no previous experience in anything, then they'll probably just go off what you've said and what you said you're interested in and what you're good at. But in terms of actually doing the job, I don't think it really matters that much. You get so much training when you first start. I know I did anyway. Like, they kind of teach you the basics as if you've never ever worked in a food environment before. They teach you kind of safety and like hygiene and all the stuff that to me would seem really, really, really obvious and simple. But for someone who's never worked in food before, then these things might be less obvious. You get taught how to use the registers. I was never cash trained, so I never got this, but if you are worried about that, then you will get trained. And also as well, once you've finished your training, if there's something you're not sure on, there are coordinators and leaders on the floor at all times. So if you do have a question or you get stuck, you can just ask someone and they'll help you. Everyone's there to kind of help each other, and you're never going to get in trouble for not knowing how to do something as long as you ask and make the effort to learn. So yeah, I would say that you don't really need it. I don't think it's that important to have experience, but obviously if you are going on a program at some point this year, who knows when Disney World will reopen, but if you are doing a program soon and you don't have any quick service experience, maybe now might be the time, if you can, to do some. Even if it's just at home, kind of like practicing wrapping food or putting ice in cups. I don't know, anything silly, but I would say it's not the most important thing. Did you still feel like you got to have interactions with guests and make magical moments for them? Absolutely. I mean, as I said, I worked in the busiest location on property, at the busiest location in the world. I do know for a fact it definitely wasn't as magical as a lot of other locations and definitely wasn't as easy to make magical moments, but it definitely did still happen. It usually happened in the form of giving away like a free slushie or like an extra cake pop or something. Like, I feel like there are definitely things you can do. Obviously you have to check with your leaders and coordinators to make sure that what you're doing is okay and you're not giving away too much for free, just because otherwise other guests will have expectations of you, like you can't do it every single time. We had a birthday song in Cosmic Rays that we sang. I feel like a lot of locations in quick service do that. So yeah, it's definitely what you make of it, and like the magical moments depend on what you choose to do and what you see is right in that moment. It might be that you have a whole shift where you don't give out any magical moments, and that's not because you can't, but it's just because it hasn't seemed right. There hasn't been a guest coming in that specifically deserves a magical moment in particular. So yeah, I would just say judge the situation, and obviously when it's a lot quieter, you're more likely to get to know guests a bit better and therefore might be able to give out more magical moments. Again, I know that if you work in one of the resorts, it can be super easy to give out magical moments just because you've kind of got access to lots of different things. You've got the pool and merchandise as well as food, so it depends where you are, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't, regardless of where you are, if that makes any sense. I think guest interactions in quick service are some of the best, just because, especially if you're again in a resort, you can talk to the same guests over and over for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks. I never really saw the same guest twice. There were the odd occasion when that did happen, but generally my favourite thing was meeting a British family because I get to talk to them. They'd always be so interested in the programme, and generally even after they've got their food, they might stay behind and chat for a little while, which is really, really nice. So it definitely does happen. I would say no less than like merchandise perhaps, but yeah, again, it just depends on your location as to how frequently you get to talk to guests and how long you can talk to guests for. Did you find the work fun? Obviously, I know it depends on co-workers. In my opinion, there will either be a really, really good day or there'll be a really, really bad day working for Disney. I feel like there is never an in-between, which is kind of annoying because I would like to have just had like an okay time for the whole time and not ever had like a bad day. But yeah, it definitely does depend on the co-workers. If any of my closer friends were working that day, then it was usually a much more fun shift. There were a few shifts when I turned up, maybe because I'd picked up a shift that I didn't normally do, and I didn't know anyone there, and it was kind of a bit scary, but everyone is super nice. At the end of the day, you all work for Disney, you all have at least one thing in common, so I feel like it's never going to be that hard. I would say it was fun in the sense that every now and again you'd remind yourself where you actually are, and then you'd kind of pick up a bit more motivation and enthusiasm, especially if you kind of had lost it a bit that day. So there are always ways to make stuff fun. Even when it comes down to like cleaning, you can still make stuff fun. Again, as you said, it does depend on co-workers, and it also depends on the mood of the guests that day, the mood of the park. If something's down and everyone's in a bit of a bad mood, or it just rained, generally won't be as fun as if it's a glorious sunny day and everything is great and everyone's having a good time. The most fun shifts I had were definitely on either filler or greeter, because I got the most guest interaction. Greeter definitely, because you kind of make it your own and you can do so many fun things with guests. We had like a photo prop board one time which guests could come and take a photo with. I mean, it broke after like 5 minutes because it was literally made of cardboard, but that was fun whilst it lasted. And there was one day when a little girl actually came up to me, and her grandparents had gone inside to get drinks, but she didn't want to go in with them because it was cold inside because of the air conditioning, so she actually stayed outside with me, and I taught her how to be a greeter, and she was pointing. I taught her the Disney point, which was super fun. So again, just making the most of what you've got on your shift to try and have the best time. The next question is popular or frequent locations people got last year. So they're guessing this is kind of for my program that I did. For me personally, from what I saw, most people in quick service got either Cosmic Rays because it is busy and huge, and I think they actually have the most CPs working there just because it is so big. So Cosmic Rays. Pecco's Built in Magic Kingdom was another really busy one. Same with like Pinocchio's in Magic Kingdom, and also Adventureland in general, like the Dole Whip stands and those kind of places were quite popular for British customers last year. I don't know if that's kind of how it works every year or if that's just the year that we got it, but yeah, those are definitely the ones that I saw pop up the most. Okay, the tea on those shoes. Oh, those shoes, I don't miss them. I mean, they were super comfy in the sense that like the insides of them were really squidgy. I actually quite liked wearing the shoes. They were comfortable, and especially wearing around the parks, like they made your outfits look terrible because they were so big and like chunky, but they were comfortable. I mean, in my own opinion, they weren't great for like Instagram and stuff. The amount of photos that I have on my Instagram where I've like had to cut my feet off because I had those horrendous shoes on. At the end, they got so sticky and gross because of the slushie that we sell in cosmetics. Like even the shoelaces, like I didn't want to touch them because they were so disgusting, and I also was working way too much to be able to like wash them and let them dry, so I didn't even really get a chance to like clean them properly, and they were just a bit gross by the end. But I mean, they were definitely comfortable, so I mean, give them to me in white and I would have worn them around the parks all day every day, but the black just was not a look. Okay, next question is, how do you pick up Mickey's Not So Scary shifts? So this would also go for the Christmas party and any other like seasonal stuff that they do in the parks. So I'm pretty sure the shift like allocation was literally just random. So for me, in my experience, people were getting like randomly assigned them. I was actually only there for the very first week of it. So I knew that I really wanted to work a shift. And you can actually trade your Not So Scary shifts, which is actually really good because that's what I did. I wasn't scheduled to be working a shift that day, which was kind of annoying because I really wanted to work one shift. So I actually ended up going to the first party on the first night and then working the second party, which is actually exactly what I wanted to do, and I was very glad that I got to do that. I actually traded with one of my lovely friends who worked at Cosmics at the time. I was kind of complaining in the break room that I hadn't picked up a shift and I was going to be leaving in a week, and so I wouldn't have a chance to do one, and she basically turned around and said, do you want to work mine? She was like, at the end of the day, I'm here until December, so I will probably get the chance to work one again. And if not, I'll get the chance to go to it, so at least work one. So we actually traded, and it was really funny. I literally dragged her up the stairs into the coordinator's office so that we could trade the shift there and then before she changed her mind. And it was such a fun shift. Honestly, it was probably the best shift I'd worked at Disney World. I loved the costume so much. It was so fun. I'll insert a picture on the screen, but it was just great. And yeah, I definitely recommend to any cast members who might be working over Halloween to definitely work a Not So Scary shift if you can. I feel like they're super easy to pick up as long as you have someone who doesn't want to work one that week, or find someone who's already done it and you haven't done it yet. But yeah, it is the most fun. Okay, and the final question for this Q&A is, what was your favourite position to pick up and why? So for me, it was definitely either speedway greeter. Although it was outside and hot, it was definitely the more sheltered of the outside greeter positions. It's basically, if you've ever been into the Magic Kingdom, then it's the entrance to Cosmix. It's directly opposite Tomorrowland Speedway. That's usually where I got put if I was a greeter, just because like the most guests would enter that way. I love doing that because I got to speak to so many people. Bay 3 filler was always good, especially to close on. Bay 1, if it was open, which it hardly ever was an absolute dream to work on because it was never that busy. But yeah, I would say either greeter or filler when it was a bit quieter was definitely the best. Okay everyone, I think that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you were able to learn a little bit more about quick service. If you do have any more questions, leave them in the comments. I will be so glad to answer and help you guys out. I hope you're having a good day, and I'll see you again very soon with another video. Bye!